Kiran, let me start by asking you. I think there's some valid criticism of what is it that India really sees as its competitive advantage. Are we Make in India? Are we Digital India? Are we smart cities? I mean, there's just so many messages, different messages going out, and maybe we need to be clear about what we stand for. I mean, Germany is all about precision engineering. China is about manufacturing. What does India's competitive edge stand for?
Well, I think if you look at India's competitive edge, software services, IT is definitely a big edge we have, because we have a very large talent pool of computational and software engineers. But like Henry said, yes, big data is analytics and machine learning, artificial intelligence is a big opportunity, but it's expensive. But I think because we have the basic ingredients, private sector will be willing to make those big bets and invest there. But you need to invest fast and in a big way. And for that, you need to make sure that your cost of capital is also competitive. Okay. Secondly, I think you must also identify job-creating sectors, like what you just mentioned. What do we do? And we need all kinds of jobs. I think we are getting too hung up on software jobs or engineering jobs.
Yeah.
I think healthcare, by the way, is always across the world the biggest job creator, because you really need, it's a sort of a pyramid structure. The specialty jobs and the highly skilled jobs you need are much smaller than the base of the pyramid, where you need the larger number of semi-skilled jobs which are easily trainable, the nursing, the other things that go with it. Tourism, again, is a low-hanging fruit, so you can do that as well. But I think it's important that you actually identify where do you want to really invest your capital. And I think private sector has to make that decision. It's not for government to steer it.
Sure. Nixon, you want to go first?
On this question, of course, comparative advantage does matter. I mean, I teach economics, so I have to say that, and it does. But we have to think about what improves productivity across the board. Where capital is mobile, labor is mobile, and notwithstanding this, some reactions against globalization, I think that's still true. Capital's mobile, labor's mobile, ideas are mobile. Where do they go? They go where it's good to do business. Where is good to do business? Infrastructure that works. People that are educated, particularly cities where you can move and breathe. That's increasingly important. And cities where you move and breathe are devastating for productivity. People won't stay in Beijing because of air pollution. Delhi is far worse. I just flew in from Beijing. Delhi is far worse. If you look at the worst 25 polluted cities in the world, half of those are in India. Not one is in China. Not one. And that doesn't mean that China's good. From the point of view of pollution, it's bad, but I'm saying that Indian cities are even worse. So think about what it is that makes people productive. Education, health, cities where you can move and breathe, a competitive, well-functioning financial system. That's, I think, where to focus when you're asking the question, how do we improve productivity across the board? Back to where I started, how does capital become still more productive?
Mr. Kotak?
While I completely agree with the points which have been made by Kiran and Nick, I have a different aspect to this. Why do we need to prejudge where we will be the most competitive? This. That is like state planning. My approach is similar to what you saw as the evolution of the software services industry in India in the late 90s. It happened without any prejudging by anybody, and it's today a $120 billion export industry. If you keep your fundamentals in terms of macroeconomic policies, which is open markets, competitive markets, avoid the temptation of protecting domestic consumer markets for domestic players or stuff like that, and you make sure that competition enables fair pricing, Indian companies who are making in India need to be able to sell not only to Indian consumers, but to the global customer base. And that is the way to decide where we can be competitive, rather than something like the Soviet planning model which India tried for many years. And there will be experimentation. There will be few sectors we will fail, but through that process, we will get our competitive advantage. And it has to be in the broader, soft and hard framework of making India competitive in general.
I just wanted to pick up on the point that you were making, Mr. Kotak, and get everybody to comment on that, and I'll start by asking you, because you were talking about this competitive edge being not just servicing the domestic market or domestic consumers, but actually being relevant to international markets as well. And we talk a lot about that, and maybe this is not the best time for India to be aspirational on the export front, given what's happening in the rest of the world, but at 1.7% of world trade, you know, we have plenty of headroom. So, you know, you can't do 10% without actually revving up your export growth as well. And what needs to be done on that front?
I think one of the things which worry me is what I see as potential risk of global currency manipulation. Okay? And that worries me. I mean, if you look at what's happening in the last few months, India's currency is strengthening dramatically.
Yeah.
At a time when many currencies in the world have depreciated. So how are we going to make sure that while we are the good boys, we are not played around with and made fools of? That's also a very important aspect. And I just see the rupee strengthening every single day. And in the context of that, if you look at our neighbor China, it has gradually depreciated its currency to 6.9 to the dollar. And India is...
So is there a case for us to look at depreciation?
No, but that is the big problem.
That's been the big want of the Commerce Ministry.
Where do we draw the line between keeping our markets free and open versus the risk of others playing a game which is not fair? And this is where I think the challenges to the rest of the countries protecting themselves or using the currency tool versus India keeping it open. I think those are the challenges which we need to be really at the table at the world stage and negotiating, not allowing this kind of unfair competition.
The one immediate reform and the one long-term reform. And when I say immediate, I mean next 12 to 24 months, and one long-term reform that you believe the government needs to take forward.
I think it's about jobs, in the both short-term and long-term. And I think if strong signals are given to private sector that they are welcome to grow and grow fearlessly and openly in a society, that will be very, very useful as a very important short-term signal which you can translate to saying animal spirits. In the long run, I think it's about hard and soft stuff. Soft stuff is things like getting our educational system, getting our fundamentals of our the whole legal system and all the areas which you need a soft infrastructure for a soft power get in place. And on the hard stuff, infrastructure, projects, deepening of financial markets, these are the things which I would say is long-term.
May I ask you what private sector is afraid of, Mr. Kotak?
I'm not saying it's afraid of. I'm saying government needs to give stronger signals to say we welcome you taking risks and we will back people who take honest risks. That's all, and strongly acting on that. That's all I said.
Well, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for articulating so comprehensively what the growth agenda needs to be for India as it aspires to get onto the 10% plus growth trajectory. We've used a lot of sporting analogies here, so I think the need of the hour really is focus, aggression, and passion. And I hope if we can bring all of that together, we'll be on our way. Thank you once again, and thank you very, very much for joining us here this evening.